So yeah, I only cried like 6 times throughout the entire show, no big deal. Trash show, 0 out of 5. Whenever people are asked to think of a good anime, it's most likely a classic show, something like Akira, Cowboy Bebop, Neon Genesis. However, Violet Evergarden is without a doubt one of the most prominent and well-known modern anime in the scene right now. When people ask for a good anime series to watch, Violet Evergarden is somewhere on that list of recommendations, which may seem like an audacious statement because this is a list which would feature things like Cowboy Bebop, Gurren Lagann, or even all very famous and renowned shows. While I don't think Violet Evergarden is as good as some of the shows on this list, I do think that regardless of that fact, Violet Evergarden has certainly staked a claim in the vast arrays of anime, and a very important one at that. So starting off with the facts, Violet Evergarden was part of the 2018 winter season. It features 13 episodes and 1 OVA. It also has a movie, and another movie, and also it's based off of a light novel series, and it has a fucking restaurant chain? What the fuck? It was animated by Kyoto Animation, so you know this shit finna crank on jaw, and it is currently available on Netflix. Violet Evergarden starts the viewer off in a bright hospital room, and from this scene alone speaks volumes about the show. It's a marvelous display of the technological might of Kyoto Animation and the overall gorgeous setting that the show takes place in. But we'll get to that later. From here, we are introduced to the main character, Violet Evergarden, a blonde, blue-eyed lady who is writing a letter to her field major, Gilbert Bougainvillea, telling him she is ready for reactivation in the armed forces. However, while she is writing her letter, Lieutenant Colonel Claudia Hodgins greets her in the hospital, informing her that the war is over and that she has been adopted by the Evergarden family. Violet was an orphan, used as a human weapon from a very young age, who was taken in by Major Gilbert Bougainvillea during the war. As such, she is very unfamiliar with civilian life, so reluctantly she decides to go with the colonel to Leiden to meet her guardians. In Leiden, she gets a job working for Hodgins' postal company, at the request of the Major. It is here that the purpose of the show begins to show its true colors. During her time in the post office, Violet overhears someone say, "I love you," which causes her to recall her last battle with the Major, in which he says the same words to her. But being brought up in a very inhumane and cruel fashion, she has the personality of a piece of wet cardboard, but she makes up for this by also having the empathy skills of an expired loaf of bread at a ShopRite. As such, she asks Hodgins to become a doll, personal letter writers that traverse the globe, helping people convert their feelings into words to send for their loved ones. Hodgins is a bit skeptical. Seeing that Violet has virtually no comprehension of human emotion is a bit of an issue, but in the end decides to have her get trained anyway. A process which at first, due to Violet's inept sense of empathy, is very tough. However, after she overcomes that hill in an emotional fashion, Violet traverses throughout the continent, across battlefields, and between past memories, all in an effort to learn what it means to love through writing emotional letters for people. Violet Evergarden is a show that is less about what it is and more about what it shows. It's simply a means of being able to show the things about human nature that are too frail and delicate to be easily represented in everyday life. Instead, Violet Evergarden takes a distant approach to addressing these topics, choosing to build up and gather the occurrences of daily life and using these experiences to build a meaningful message. The show walks Violet and the viewer through the stages of life and the joy and pain that is prevalent throughout these avenues of life. Through Violet's numerous experiences of the world, of people, we come to realize just how fragile our world is and perhaps gain a new understanding of who we are and the people around us. Connections are what make us human. The various ways we interact with those around us, express our love to, show our care towards, or feel scared or angry towards. All of these things are what make us human, what separates us from more primitive animals. The show seeks to expose some of the things that we often hide from one another. Our feelings and emotions are some of the hardest things that we as humans can talk about and share with others. Violet Evergarden, despite that, chooses to illustrate the feelings and behavior of people in subtle ways over the course of an episode or episodes, gradually revealing itself until an apex is reached when you just break down. Piece of shit! Episode 10 just hits different. It still hits differently after an entire year. The animation and music are good. Damn, is that really all you have to say, you uncultured fuckface? Will someone get him out of here? Thank you. So yes, being a product of Kyoto Animation, you know they had to do it to them when it comes to the art style and overall animation of the show. It is outrageously good. The stills alone look absolutely stunning. They are full of vibrancy and little details, nagging the viewer to really look at them and observe all they have to offer. The animation is unacceptably good. I don't want to know how much time was spent on just the rotoscoping. Not even like normal shots or anything, just rotoscoping alone probably used up half of G-Force's budget. I think deep down, this show had to have this level of animation and attention to detail from the start because the animation is just one form that Violet Evergarden shows what it's about and not really what defines it. Sure, the animation is good, but if I could throw this animation onto any show, it would get raving reviews and critics all complimenting the appearance of the show. The beauty of Violet Evergarden's animation comes through how it complements the show. I feel as if a lot of these emotional and eyeballing out scenes wouldn't have been possible had it not been for the extreme passion and beauty put into the animation. It really elevates the emotional weight of a scene by bringing out a sense of beauty and delicateness to the characters. It makes the setting so much more believable and appreciated, and by causing the viewer to appreciate the world that has been crafted, these heartfelt scenes become much more emotional as the viewer begins to understand the purpose and meaning behind the scenes, what they mean both for Violet, but also what it means for the viewer, what the show is trying to say about life and its various oddities. The music is easily one of the best OSTs ever composed. It's a well-diversified cast of tracks, ranging from very militaristic marches triumphant celebratory anthems, to opera, to those heart-wrenching pieces that would make even Hulk Hogan cry. The gorgeous music working in tandem with the gorgeous visuals help convey a much more deeply impacting and emotional finish to the show. Now, time for the million-dollar question. Is Violet Evergarden overrated? Kind of. To be frank, Violet Evergarden seems to have abandoned its own formula for success in order to generate its success. What the fuck? Let me explain to you what I'm trying to say. This show is like Death Stranding. Connections and human interaction are vitally important, and it is through human interaction that the show illustrates its meaning and purpose. The problem is Violet Evergarden goes on so many field trips to so many different places exploring different types of human connections and structures like married couple, father-child, mother-child, soldier, widow. There are so many possibilities that this show explores, yet it fucking dies when it comes to Violet's own connections. The characters in this show fucking suck. The only good character is Santa Claus, but that's because he's Santa Claus, okay? There's a real sense of disjointment when examining who Violet interacts with. Hodgins hex off after episode 5, Catalea hex off with him, Jacob Sartorius was there for the comic relief and to get cyberbullied, Velma is trash, I still don't remember her name, and this guy's an asswipe. In short, there are virtually no memorable characters in the show other than Violet, which really sours the show. It's difficult to tell what Violet really is thinking about or get a gauge on how her character has developed. Obviously, that is the purpose of the show, to get Violet to understand and learn what the Major said to her. But with a real lack of any litmus test being able to analyze just how far Violet has developed as a character, the show remains fairly imperfect. Sure, she cries and writes better letters as the show progresses, but it doesn't reflect onto the people she spends her time with and ends up creating these really shallow and pointless characters. Just because something made you cry or was very emotional and beautiful doesn't automatically grant it some special status as the best piece of media ever made. I think a large portion of the anime community often does this, especially for this show. Violet Evergarden is good, but is it as good as this? Is it as good as this? The overall plot construction is basically completely dissociated from the purpose of the show. Sure, visiting all these different people and writing letters for them helps her understand what love is and human emotion, but not being able to see this new understanding being applied to the characters that surround Violet and see actual character development juxtaposes the entire concept of the show of relationships and connections with people. It may seem small, something like characters and their development to be holding back a show this much, but in this case, with a show whose entire premise and focus is that of characters and their feelings reciprocating with others, it drags down the overall purpose and impact of the show and makes it, frankly, a lot harder to watch. Violet Evergarden gets a 4.5 out of 5. Had they smoothed out a lot of the interactions between Violet and her terrible, unmemorable companions, this show would be a lot closer to a 5. However, don't let that discourage you. I still think this is a very good show, just not as good as most people have been saying it is. Episodes 10 and 11 alone just annihilate you with tears, and I think that speaks volumes as to how emotionally Kyoto Animation have certainly hit the ball out of the park on this one. So if you are looking to cry alone depressingly, or cry with a loved one only a tad bit less depressingly, definitely look to Violet Evergarden as one of your options. It's a show that when I first watched it, never expected, but I loved it anyway, and I believe that it is one of the best shows that the medium of anime has produced in the last 5 years, and I anxiously await the wondrous worlds the show has yet to show us.
Yo, where's Louis?
It's trash, just watch G4.